Welcome to Hardee and Steve's podcast regarding the English.
Well, what are we going to call the series if it's not Star Trek? I think it should be Hardy and Steve Watch Stuff, or is it Hardy and Steve Watch the English?
I think because it's going on the Zoo Escapee channel, right?
Yeah.
So how about Hardee and Steve watch the English? And each
Okay.
time it's a different
Yeah. Yeah.
thing. We just changed the title.
Yep. Sounds good to me.
So, thoughts about the English. It's a television miniseries produced by the BBC and Amazon Prime, written by Hugo Blick. It's a six-part TV miniseries, and it premiered November 11th, 2022, almost a year ago. And it stars Emily Blunt and Chasky Spencer. Chasky is the cavalry scout and of Pawnee ancestry.
Yeah. His name
And
is Eli Whip, with two P's. And do you
uh-huh,
remember the name
slash
of
wounded wolf.
slash Wounded Wolf? And Emily Blunt's character is, I think, Cornelia. I can't remember her last name.
Me neither, but I think
Lady
it's like
Cornelia
Lady
something or
Cornelia.
other.
Yeah. And so the first thing I did was look up the entry of the English in Wikipedia, and it's styled as the revisionist Western television miniseries. And I looked up what revisionist meant. And um, in this case, it's because the protagonist is a Pawnee Native American, and usually Westerns are um, cowboys. So that's why it's called a revisionist Western
Yeah, it
television.
was kind of a cop out. Like it was looking for something exciting, but all that revisionist seems to mean in this context is not using the tropes of classic westerns, where it's settlers versus Indians slash bandits, and the hero with the badge defeats the heavy. Like almost anything but that shows a more nuanced American frontier um, is a revisionist western. But okay, I guess that's the genre definition.
And a second point, I thought the visuals were gorgeous. I love the landscape. I'm not exactly sure where it was filmed, but I know that um, in the story, it's supposed to be in the newly formed Oklahoma Territory, and it opens up with a U.S. Army patrol uh, finding Running Hawk, this Cheyenne chief who had murdered a U.S. soldier before, and they were going to kill Running Hawk's family as well, but Eli steps in and saves them.
Oh, I
Um,
don't think they were gonna kill them. I mean, maybe they would, but I think they were gonna rape the women.
well, there was only one woman.
No,
It
there
was
were
his
two.
wife and his son, the
Oh, that was a
child.
son. Oh, okay,
Yeah.
I thought it was a
So
daughter.
no, and but I no, because I think they were going to, because I think they one of the one of the US Army men was like, you just leave them alone, just leave them alone. And then the other
Yeah, he
soldiers were
said
like,
you're gonna look away, and
yeah,
then he's like licking his lips up until he sees Eli up on the horse on the ridge, and Whip says, "No, not today."
yeah,
And they
that's
have
all
this
he
argument.
said.
This is a really cool argument, I thought, where um, the one soldier says to the other, you hate Indians, but you follow one," and he just says something like, "I know it's a contradiction, but it's a contradiction, whatever."
Yeah, so I thought Chasky, who plays Eli Whip, was just very commanding. He doesn't seem to say a lot, but it's his position, it's his demeanor, and you know, I looked up the the scout history a little bit, and it turns out that they existed in that time, And so they, in some ways, they had to wear two hats. Not only were they Native Americans, but they were also serving the United States cavalry as scouts in that territory um, against the Sioux and Cheyenne. So the wife who was saved by him was not particularly grateful for his interference. In fact, she kind of spat in his direction and said, "You're one of them. Like you're a traitor. You
Yep.
know, I don't care if you saved my life. I didn't want you. I didn't need your help." Um, which is an interesting take on it.
Yeah.
Um, and then one of the soldiers comes along with him, and he tells him that he is probably going to retire and then uh, go up north. And then the subordinate soldier said it was, it was a privilege to work under you, but I have to let you know that once you're out of the army, you're one of them again, to us. So be careful. And also look up the man who that that's the brother's life that we avenged today with Red Hawk. I mean, he's in Wyoming too.
Yep.
So that was one piece of information until, well, I mean, the story, does open up with a little bit with Lady Cornelia already at her castle type home in England. But it was very brief. We just saw this veil, almost like a mourning veil over
Mm-hmm.
her hat in a stagecoach. And she just says something to the effect of she's going to take vengeance for her son's death or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And then it closes out, and then we see the introduction to Eli. Um, but then in the next scene, we see Eli strung up in with a rope tied up, and it was like very quiet. And then we see a lady step out of a coach, a stagecoach, and she is dressed in beautiful Victorian regalia and so out of place in this setting. And it's very confusing because everything else is very stark and quiet and dead, except for these like minstrels, Steve, that were making weird music. Like, what was it? Was it guitar or
It
was it?
was an accordion. The guy was playing a little, the small round accordion, not a full square one. And he had porcupine needles as the decoration of his hat. I thought it was a nice costuming touch. Like,
And nothing in for miles around except for one rundown little building that said with a big sign hotel.
yep.
And yeah.
Yeah, it's almost like she thought she was going to be staying at this hotel on the road, but we quickly find out actually it's being run by um, this cruel man who is, he later reveals, I'm telling this out of order, right? So spoilers if you want to watch it. It's on Amazon
The
Prime.
villain, he's the actor named
Yeah,
Kieran Hines.
yeah,
I've seen him in other things.
right. Oh, he doesn't seem to outlast episode one though, because he says he works for the real villain.
Oh,
The
yeah, spoiler.
and um, our Sergeant Whip dispatches him towards the end of the episode.
Yeah, but before then, we see our hero strung up, and oh, it's kind of heartbreaking. Like we
Yeah,
don't know what's gonna happen.
that gets to one of my points, which is that we see Eli strung up. We see this bloody body at the beginning. We see some pretty gruesome murders, implications of sexual violence, and it it seems to me it's like needing some shock value to like channel Westworld and Deadwood, two shows I did not like, even though I watched the first couple episodes of both back in the day. And like, I don't need that in my revisionist Western, I guess. I was almost like, this is gross. I don't really necessarily want to continue.
Yeah, it does get a little bit like it did ride that line for me too. But I did have faith that this was Emily Blunt
Yeah,
project, and I
and
know that
shows tend to calm down after the pilot.
and I know that she was an executive producer on it too.
Yeah,
So I thought, you know what? Um, I don't, I'm not sure if this is gratuitous and maybe it's just building a point. She herself, the character Lady Cornelia, walks up to Eli, has never seen this person, but immediately feels a connection and wants to save his life. And she turns back to the the villain, the man who strung um, Eli up, and offers him a lot of money to have him taken down. In response, she gets punched in the
yeah.
face.
He knocks her unconscious, and it seems like it seems like he doesn't know her, doesn't know who she is, and that she's actually carrying quite a lot of money because that's revealed shortly thereafter. But it seems like he's like, you're offering me this money, and I know I can just knock you out or kill you and take it. I don't have to agree to anything.
At this point, my memory is kind of lacking, but how did Eli get loose?
Um, so it was kind of implied and told out of order. But what happened was the bad guys at the hotel decided that they are going to pin
Oh,
the
right,
murder
yeah.
of Cornelia on Eli. And
Mm-hmm.
so Cornelia's not even murdered yet. He seems to want to like have dinner of Rocky Mountain, prairie oysters, bull testicles, with her. Put her in her pretty red dress and stuff, and um, I guess have this scene before just killing her. But basically, he's going to kill her. She knows this when she wakes up. Her bag falls open with the money, and we know they're going to take the money. And um,
Next thing we see is
Eli's on the
Eli,
carriage.
yeah, in this sitting, bound
Yeah, he's
next
in the
to
handcuffs.
Toby Jones's character.
Right.
I know
And
that
Toby
that's the
Jones, who
actor.
also doesn't survive the episode, is
But
straight.
I want to take a moment though to talk about the scene because it's kind of interesting because Toby, he's kind of being a little bit evil here, taking him and binding Eli, and kind of saying, I know you, Eli, because I've worked with the Pawnee people before, and you know, I know what you do, I know your job, but he's got his own job, right? He's been paid to turn Eli in, um, and then Eli spots three people off in the distance, and you know Toby Jones's character says, "Okay, well, are they friendlies or are they not?" And and they don't know. And they come closer. It turns out they're not friendly,
Yeah,
and they want to take Eli.
yeah.
Um, the
And
Toby Jones
it's sort of an
character,
interesting point. Toby's character says, "Well, the team is tired, and we're carrying a coach. They're not, so we might as well just stop and wait."
and he has an invention of sorts that he
Right.
has two automatic guns that are
Yeah. It's there's guns
located
that
at the bottom of
fire
the
out the sides of the carriage, and he
stage.
can
Yeah.
pull the trigger from where he's sitting.
So they have three people coming at them, and
Excuse me.
um, you know, the tables have turned in some sense because now Toby's character uh frees his arm because now they have to strategize about how they're going to take down three people with only two people, one person with the weapon, and possible um armament from the carriage. And so they when they face these three strangers on horses, they entice them to stand closer to the carriage, and then of course the big shootout happens, and um, all three go down, but also the Toby Jones character.
Yep.
And in this moment, you get a reveal of Eli's character. he doesn't hurt Toby. Toby was hurt in the shootout, and now he's in extreme pain. So even though Eli can just ride away easily, Eli reaches in and hands him a handgun. And then there's a moment between them.
Reaches in from to one of the dead men's holsters and hands Toby a handgun from that.
Yeah. And that's very kind of him because
Yeah, it's obvious that Toby's character is he's kind of saying, "Well, I get to sit here and bleed out,
yeah. Or I can
contemplate my
have
life."
or I can go, and not and be far from the pain. So Eli gives him that option, and he rides back to get something precious to him in his ancestry that was left behind at the town where Emily Blunt's character is still um, kind of imprisoned. And um, after he forces her to eat this uh, thing, after the villain forces, they're having this dinner, and you just have to see the scene to believe the, sort of uh, disgusting thing about it. But Emily's character handles it very well. Like she's a little tougher, and there's grit in her character, and it's shown by the way that she eats the thing and licks her fingers after. Like, okay, this is disgusting, but you're not going to break my will, my spirit in a
Yeah,
way. Yeah, and then Eli comes in and offs this guy, and there's now she's curious about him. She feels that they should join up together for
yeah.
yeah.
It,
Go ahead.
I just thought of something about this scene that didn't
Mhm.
occur to me at the time, and you mentioned it was a little bit channeling of Quentin Tarantino, and what I'm thinking now, looking back
Not
on.
this, not during this talk,
Oh,
but
but during this talk, I thought this is a
no, no.
not as good version as the talk at the end of Kill Bill.
It's not Kill Bill that it reminded me of. I saw the Hateful Eight,
Yeah,
and Hateful Eight. If you think is that, if you think the English is gory,
yeah. I haven't seen the
uh,
Hateful Eight. I have seen. I think I've seen the beginning of the other Cowboy Tarantino one,
all I can say is Hateful Eight is pretty
Django
gory.
Unchained.
Um, it's more gory than
You know, it's
uh Django,
funny.
I think,
Like
because
the gore in Kill Bill doesn't offend me for some reason.
yeah, they made it pretty in
Yeah,
that. No, I've seen Kill Bill. No, it's pretty gross when Jennifer Jason Leigh walks in and she's been manhandled. She's, of course, this dangerous criminal, but she is still very petite and small and female. She's covered from, like, in blood from being smacked around so much that every part of her body is bloodied, especially her face. And she has to she has to deliver lines. I mean, the actress as this character with all that blood for the majority of the movie. And yeah, I think it tries to desensitize you to the violence, but I was uh I was revolted by it, but I still watched it because it was good writing. Um, but yeah, I was glad that the English was not as as in your face as the Hateful Eight. Um, but yeah, no, if you don't, if you think you can stomach it, you can watch the Hateful Eight because the story is really tight.
I
It's
don't
pretty
know.
good. It's the violence that got me, and the blood that got to me. Um, so yeah, that's what I meant by when I it was channeling
Mm.
Quentin Tarantino, not Kill Bill. No, that they did it stylistically different. And yeah, different movie altogether. Um, so did you have any other questions about the show?
No, I think Eli is a very interesting character, and it's mirrored in Cornelia, who also has this dark side and willingness to be ruthless that we show when she's basically given the opportunity to execute one of the henchmen, and she takes it. Um, Eli has this rig where the guy's hung upside down, and uh, to a like via a lever to the horse and a pulley, really, well, a rope over a rod, and he says we're going to let the horse decide what happens to you. So if the horse walks away, then he gets pulled higher up, and if it walks closer, he gets let down headfirst into the liquid. I'm not sure if it was water or waste. Some of the dialogue suggested it was excrement, human or animal. But Cornelia chooses to nudge the horse in the closer, therefore drowned direction, and that sort of feeds into the agreement where we're going to adventure together. Eli's reluctant; she really wants his help, but she sort of says, "We're a team. I
Yeah.
can make it worth your while, but even though you don't appreciate how." And he's convinced, and that's the episode. Um, but
Yeah,
I like the contradictions.
it's an awfully great start. How many stars do you give it?
What does 4 stars mean? Like, is this as good as any TV? Like, what I would want to watch, or
It's what you make it.
um, I'm gonna go 2.5. Um, it's gonna be really hard for things outside my preferred genres to break a 3, and this was okay. Um,
Okay, I was kind of hovering between 3.5 and a 4, and I have to say that I'm kind of excited about it. I'll give it a 4.
yeah,
Um,
I'm definitely hooked enough to want to see episode 2.
I think I think this is good character building. Eli Eli, I don't know if I've ever seen a character like that on television or movies where um this much respect is given to a Native American male. You know, it's interesting. I like to see different perspective, different sides, and this one is giving uh a different side to it. So I like that.
Yeah, and it's not just, oh, flip it and say Indians right, Westerners wrong.
Hmm.
It's the Eli's got a speech in there saying everybody kills everybody out here. I was the hero rescuing you today against these thieves and murderers, but I've been a thief and a murderer, and I will again. And
It's nuanced. It's
yeah,
cool. Well, until next time, everyone, we will be back to talk about the English. Thank you.
bye bye. Hey guys, so we continued the conversation after we stopped recording, and this is a little coda. So we actually got into a little bit of a heated debate about why I would think that this western was like Kill Bill, which is not a western, which has none of the genre trappings, which is a pretty different sort of story. And um, where I came down, wanted to kind of bolster, is that here we have in the English, we have this scene where you have a man, a villain who's in a room with a woman, and they have some history, but also some serious conflict, and one of them's going to die. And the man thinks it's going to be the woman. The man thinks he has all the power, and in fact, he's going to die, and the audience knows it. And this is a lot like that speech at the end of Kill Bill, where Bill is there saying, I've got you, kiddo, under my control. I'm going to inject you with this truth drug that I've got the dart gun for. I'm going to give you a brilliant speech about Superman. And then we're going to fight. And as the audience member, you know that Bill is going to die. And this reminded me of that in the sense that you have our character. He's just a mini boss, but he's still the local boss, and he thinks he has all the power. He's feeding her these oysters, but we're just waiting for Eli to come and do something. And the question is it going to be, is it going to be a gun? Is it going to be a knife? Is it going to be strangled? It's a knife, in fact. Um,
That's I was wrong. I think that my husband Steve has a point. I think that it was a pretty epic scene between the villain and Lady Cornelia, and the fact that Lady Cornelia is not afraid of him, even though he is twice her size almost, and is very intimidating. A very good actor. You would think that in a fight that physically he should win. But she remains very steadfast, patient, and at no point did I think that she didn't have what it took to escape the situation. It just so happened that Eli came before she could think of a way to escape him properly herself.
yeah, agreed. Right. It was not clear that Eli was going to be rescuing her. I mean, it kind of looked that way, but she could have done something too.
Yeah. So thank you,
Yeah.
Steve.
So that's our coda.
Yeah.
All right. Bye, guys. For real this time.
Bye.